On the evening of March 13, 2013, white smoke rose over the Sistine Chapel. The world watched with anticipation. Habemus Papam. We have a pope. Cardinal Jorge Mario Bergoglio of Argentina had been elected the 266th Pope of the Roman Catholic Church, the first Jesuit pope, the first from the Americas, and the first to take the name Francis, after Saint Francis of Assisi. From the very first moment, Pope Francis broke tradition. He greeted the crowd not with pomp, but with a bow. "Pray for me," he said, placing the people before himself. This simple act defined what would become the hallmark of his papacy, a commitment to humility, service, and radical change. He refused to live in the apostolic palace, choosing instead the simpler Vatican guest house. He carried his own bags, drove in modest cars, and paid his own hotel bill after his election. For many, this was more than symbolism. It was a sign that the Vatican was about to change. One of Francis' first major actions was to tackle the Vatican Bank, known officially as the Institute for the Works of Religion. Amid decades of financial scandal and secrecy, Francis called for an audit, increased transparency, and created the Secretariat for the Economy. He also formed the Council of Cardinals, a group of advisors from around the world, a move to decentralize Vatican authority and represent the global Church more inclusively. Francis has consistently preached a message of inclusion and love, famously stating, "The Church is not a toll house, it is the house of the Father, where there is a place for everyone, with all their problems." He called for a church that is poor and for the poor, echoing the life of Saint Francis of Assisi. He washed the feet of prisoners, visited refugees, and embraced people living with disabilities, showing through action that no one is beyond God's mercy. In 2015, he released the landmark encyclical Laudato Si, calling on the world to care for creation and recognize climate change as a moral issue. This document resonated far beyond Catholic circles and positioned Francis as a global leader on environmental ethics. He criticized the excesses of capitalism, calling it an economy that kills, and emphasized the dignity of work and the importance of just systems. A message rooted in Catholic social teaching but renewed in urgent language for the modern age. Yet not all welcome these changes. Francis' openness toward LGBTQ+ Catholics, divorced persons, and interfaith dialogue sparked tension within conservative factions of the Church. "Who am I to judge?" His now famous remark when asked about gay priests was hailed by many as revolutionary, but others saw it as too ambiguous. He opened discussion on issues like married priests in the Amazon, the role of women in the Church, and decentralization of authority, areas some viewed as undermining tradition. In 2018, a former Vatican diplomat accused him of covering up sexual abuse cases, an allegation Francis denied. Though the Vatican has since taken serious steps to combat abuse, critics argue the process is still too slow. Francis continues to walk a line between reform and tradition, between listening to the faithful and challenging the institution. But who is Pope Francis in his final years? And how will history remember this unusual, deeply human pontiff? Throughout his papacy, Pope Francis has made it his mission to heal centuries-old wounds, not just within the Church, but across religions and cultures. His historic meeting with the Grand Imam of Al-Azhar in 2019 led to the signing of the document on human fraternity, a powerful call for peace, coexistence, and mutual respect between Christians and Muslims. In 2021, he became the first pope to visit Iraq, walking in the footsteps of Abraham, a journey of unity in a land scarred by division and war. He also extended hands of friendship to Jewish leaders and made strides in Orthodox Catholic relations. His focus was not just doctrine, but humanity. "Let us build bridges, not walls," he urged, time and again, a message that resonated in an age of rising nationalism and division. In recent years, Pope Francis's health has become a growing concern. Surgeries, chronic knee pain, and reduced mobility have sparked rumors and honest questions about retirement. Unlike his predecessors, Francis has spoken openly about the possibility of stepping down, saying, "The door is open. It is a normal option. But until today, I have not knocked on that door." He praised Pope Benedict XVI for resigning in humility, and has even suggested that resigning from the papacy should be normalized when health no longer allows for effective service. Though slower, his mind remains sharp. And he continues to meet with leaders, release encyclicals, and address global crises, from war to poverty to the refugee crisis. So what is the legacy of Pope Francis? For many, he will be remembered as the Pope of Mercy, the one who invited the world into a jubilee of mercy, who urged Catholics to accompany rather than condemn, to love rather than label. For others, he will be the Pope of Disruption, who shook the Vatican, challenged rigid structures, and made people uncomfortable in the best possible way. He has changed the tone of the papacy, from distant authority to compassionate presence. As Francis enters the twilight of his papacy, questions about succession and the future of the Church linger. Will the next pope continue his reforms? Or return to tradition? But perhaps the most lasting impact of Pope Francis lies not in what he changed, but in how he changed it, not through grand proclamations, but through gestures, embracing the poor, listening to the voiceless, and urging a wounded world to walk together. Reality is greater than ideas, he once said. And in reality, Pope Francis has reminded us that faith is not just doctrine, it's action, relationship, compassion, and courage. In a time of turmoil, Francis stood as a shepherd. Not perfect, not without controversy, but deeply human. In a church of over 1 billion souls, he chose simplicity over status, encounter over exclusion. And whether he leads another year or another decade, his legacy is already etched, not just in marble, but in hearts around the world. If this journey moved you, share this story, and let us keep learning from the life of Pope Francis. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories of faith, leadership, and legacy.